Another week of rental house versus high income ETFs after spending almost a month in Europe bicycling around Switzerland, Austria, Germany, France, and I guess that was all. I'm back paying attention to my investments and getting back to the normal routine of being retired, whatever that is. I retired in April and I really don't have a normal routine quite yet, but trying to develop one. So let's just get into it. If you're new to this series of videos, I'd love it if you would subscribe. I'm trying to get to 1,000 subscriptions and I'm at 500 and some right now. So got a ways to go. Maybe I can make that by the end of the year. We'll see. So I'd like to pay attention to what the S&P 500 is doing overall. So there's things I pay attention to, and I don't buy and sell shares, or try to time the market. But what I do like to do is reinvest some of the dividends in some of my other funds, my retirement, my IRA, 401k funds that I have in other accounts. When I reinvest cash, I like to do it when the time is right. And so investing cash right now, in my opinion, isn't quite the right time. It looks like the market is overbought just a little bit. So the things I like to look at, I look at the SPY chart on Yahoo Finance. I look at the Bollinger Band and I see that it's trading at the upper level of the Bollinger Band. So I wait for that to dip down below the 20-day moving average. This is the 20-day moving average right here. The other thing I like to look at is the relative strength index, which is right now 71. And that indicates that S&P 500 is overbought just a little bit. So the cash that is accumulating, I would hold off for a little bit of a dip. We've had quite the run up in the past couple of weeks. I'm expecting a little bit of a pullback at some point. And at that point, I'll buy some more shares or something. I haven't bought anything for a while. I'm waiting for things to dip just a little bit. So let's get to the good stuff here. So here's my account. I have 162,948 invested. Of that, 88,705 is equity. So I started with 70,000. That 70,000 is worth 88,705 right now. So I am using margin to boost my returns. I got 74,243 in margin right now. What I own is down here, the different stocks, actually ETFs. Starting at the bottom, I have QDTE, I have AIPI, QQQI, SPY, GIAX, and MAGY. The MAGY is the newest addition, along with QQQI. Of all these, my favorite is QQQI. During the downturn in April and the recovery, it's done quite well. In fact, we'll take a look at that next. This is the total return since November 1st, 2024, when I started this experiment. This is when I put the 70,000 into the Robinhood account and start using margin to see how things would go. So anyhow, since November 1st of 2024, the S&P or the SPY is up about 14%. And QQQ is up about 20%. Those are the two indicators I like to look at when I compare other things. If you look at the things I've invested in, the AIPI is up almost 15%, GIAX 10%, QDTE about 15%, SPY 11.5%, and QQQI 17, almost 17.5%. So the surprising thing is that QQQI is outperforming all these other covered call ETFs. I would have probably have guessed that AIPI and QDTE would be outperforming QQQI. But since QQQI did not go down quite as much as the rest of them and the recovery's been better, it's actually outperformed. So that's why QQQI has been one of my favorites. It wasn't one of my favorites before this, but this just proves what's going on. So of course, the cover call ETFs traditionally don't outperform the underlying. So QQQ is at 20%. And if you compare SPY with SPY, that also lags, but that's what I expected, and I'm happy with that. So people ask if QQQ and SPY are outperforming these cover calls, why don't I just invest in QQQ and SPY? The main reason is because I don't want to try to time the market when the best time is to sell shares in order to pay back margins. If I'm using margin, I want to pay down that balance at some point, and trying to time when to sell shares of QQQ or SPY could be a little tricky trying to time things. With the cover call ETFs, they pay the distributions weekly and monthly, and those distributions go straight toward the margin balance and pays it down. I don't have to really pay attention to it. I could do better, but I'm doing okay. In fact, if you look over here, for this experiment, I'm up 26.72% since November 1st. So I'm fine with how it's going and what I'm doing. And if you're interested, I use this website to compare totalreturns.com. It includes the distributions and the dividends along with the total rate of return. So you can see the total return, not just the net asset value. What have I purchased lately? Really nothing. Today is September 20th, and I haven't bought anything since August 20th. And during this upswing, I wait for a dip before I buy anything else. But sometimes I just get desperate and start adding a few things here and there. And activity for the past week or so. Last Monday, I got a distribution from MAGY. Then I got a distribution from QDTE and another one from MAGY. QDTE and MAGY pay weekly. MAGY pays every Monday. QDTE pays every Friday. The rest of these pay monthly. If we jump down here, you can see the dates of when each of them pay. So you can see how MAGY pays weekly here, and down here. So it looks like there's 5 Mondays in the month of September. So I'll get 5 distributions from that. QDTE, I'll have 4 distributions here. And down here, the monthly distributions, they pay toward the end of the month, around the 26th to the 27th or so. That could vary a little bit. So here, I obviously got placeholders for those distributions. Now, this over here is last month, so you can get an idea of what I'm expecting for the rest of the month. So this totaled up is about $2,000. So I should end up the month about 3,700 or so, which is pretty good. August, I had 4,100 because there were 5 Fridays. So I got an extra distribution from QDTE, which is about $600 on average. When I receive these distributions, it goes straight to the balance of the margin account and pays that down. This is the chart I like looking at the most. It shows where I'm at, where I've been, where I'm going. When I start this project, I projected how things should go. About this date, I should be at 99,000. I should be up 41%. But that didn't happen. The reality is I'm at 88,000 and I'm up 26.72%, which is perfectly decent. I would take that every single year after year. Down here where this blue line is, that would be the 1-year anniversary when I started this. So I'm hoping to be, maybe 30% for the year. The green line is at the calendar year. At that point, I'll rethink some things. My calculation is that I expected this to grow at 0.75% per week, which if everything went great at the end of the year, it'd be up 57%. Now, is that too optimistic? Perhaps. The thing to remember is that I have $162,000 that is earning distributions, not just the 88,000. So I'm getting distributions on 88,000 and 74,000, so 162,000. So that's boosting my return. Now I am paying interest on this 74,000, about $300 per month. but the distributions are over 1,000. So I'm getting an extra $700-800 a month of distributions off this margin. So now some people get freaked out about margin. We had rental properties for 35 years and we still have rental property. You buy a rental property, you borrow money on it. You basically have your positive cash flow, the rent you collect minus expenses, whatever's left over is positive cash flow. So I look at margin as the same thing. I'm earning $1,000 a month. Let's call it rent. And my payment is $300 a month. So I got a positive cash flow of $700 per month. That's exactly how I look at it. I look at the pile of ETFs as the house, and I look at the margin as the loan on that house. And speaking of the house, this whole idea is like, how would things have worked out and compare if we would have kept that house? We've actually sold several houses. The reason why I decided to keep track and do this experiment is because with these other houses, we invested that money into ETFs and some different things, not just cover call ETFs, but other things like BDCs, closed-end funds, regular index funds like S&P 500 or the SPY. So a variety of things. But then I was looking at these covered calls. I had money in SPY and QQQ, and I was actually writing some covered calls on those funds, which, if you don't know what covered calls are, I can't take time to explain it in this video. There's a million YouTube videos that explain what they are. So I was writing covered calls on those things. Then I started looking around and saw that there were funds like the SPY, QQQI, that were basically doing the same thing I was doing, except they had a system down. I was doing okay, but I just had to watch it all the time and pay attention week to week or day to day. I decided to just let a fund manager at QQQI or SPY manage that. And I'd still do that a little bit, write cover calls. It's more of a hobby and fun to do rather than shooting for big monthly distributions. So I let the fund managers do that now. But anyhow, if we would have kept that house, we'd be collecting $700 a month in rent, paying $80 for insurance, $200 for taxes. Then we'd be depositing that money into a checking account. Since then, that checking account would be like $4,600. Yes, I know there'd be other expenses, broken windows, plumbing problems, broken this, broken that, things that renters do. But anyhow, I didn't include none of that because even if I had a perfect year with the house, it still wouldn't compete with the ETFs. I also calculated equity. The house would grow in equity at 4% per year, which is $233 per month. So that's the equity growth. So the cash and the equity be like $77,183. So how does that compare with the ETF? So the house is $77,183. The ETF right now is $88,705. So total to date, the ETFs are up by $11,522. So it's 160% higher than what the rental house would be. At this point, I'm totally thrilled. I'm happy with how things are going. I expect the ETFs to do better. This is somewhat what I expected. For now, I'm just letting this money sit and see where I can go with it. That's the update for this week. If you enjoy this as entertainment, it's not investment advice. It's just showing people what I'm doing and what's possible. So if you're entertained by it, go ahead and subscribe, and we'll see you next week.